Okay, hello. Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Goodwin. I'm the project manager for the Lanchester Interactive Archive. Who's Frederick Lanchester? Well, you're sat in his library. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He was born in 1868. He can conceivably be called one of Britain's most prominent engineers, designers. He was a polymath, designer, engineer, famous for many first things. He patented and built. In 1894 he designed, and in 1895 he built the first all-British motor car. He went on to build the first all-British boats. He patented many things around aeroflight, propellers, wing design, around cars. He fluffed already. Around cars, he patented things around gearing, power steering, turbo. This was in 1890s, 1900s. Why don't we know about him? Well, the project has been funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. We've got 3 years to develop the archive. So within this building, within this university, we have the world's largest archive of Frederick Lanchester's papers. We have thousands of blueprints, drawings, sketches, his correspondence. Not many artifacts, actually. Like most engineers and inventors, not most, but oft. He was a great inventive thinker, but not a very good businessman. So at the end of his life, he was very, very poor. So when he died, they had to sell all his assets off. But we've got the papers. That's why we're called the Frederick Lanchester Building. So the project is to develop an interactive and physical space where anybody can come, read about his work, read about his designs, get inspired by his brilliance, and then take that out. We're looking to inspire young people through STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also scholars. We will be building a space in this building on the second floor, the Lanchester Discovery Space at the moment. Within that, there will be opportunities to look at and touch, obviously, some of the actual assets, some of the papers, look at those. There will also be an interactive platform. There'll be a web portal that will house serious games that will enable people to understand what those inventions were, also augmented reality assets. There will be the repository there of all of his papers and works. I should also say he had a hand in patenting things around colour photography, music notation, business management. His military strategies are still used in the world today. His business management strategies are still used and taught in Japan today. He was an amazing person. So the point for today is just to tell people about the project. It's 3 years. We're in the first setup phase now. The space will go live, will be open. This is just some indicative designs of what it will look like. It'll be on the second floor of the library. That will open in January next year. And then we have 2 years to get the name of Frederick Lanchester out there. So I'd like to ask you all to help. I can't tell you everything about the project today, but I can direct you to the website. Here's some illustrations of some of the things that we've got. They're absolutely beautiful. We've got 5,000 blueprints. We've got 15 sketchbooks with 12,000 images in them of things that he thought about. His mind just rolled on all the time, inventing, creating new things. Things like turbo and power steering, he never ever used them in his cars. He invented them, he patented them. He just didn't use them in his cars because he didn't need to, and then they were left. He patented things around flight 20 years before the Wright brothers made their first plane. How amazing is that? And we don't know enough about him. So what I'd like you to do is tell people about Lanchester, look him up. You can go on the website and look at the project. We're interested in people volunteering as well, so if what I've said in this just couple of minutes has excited you, please get involved. At the end of this, there's going to be a slide that just has some images of logos. We're just testing out some theories. We want to get something that symbolises the old and the new. So if you have a look at that when it comes to it, and then later on today when you go out for coffee, I've put these sheets up, there's one on the wall just over there. If you could just put a little post-it by something that you think symbolises the project that we're working on, which is fusing, you know, the wonderful creations and trying to bring it into the world today. And gosh, I've said all I want to say and I've even got to the end. What shall I do now? He was one of 3 brothers, I should say that as well. He was one of 8, and all 3 of them were very, very inventive. This is his brother George, who made a model. That's the very first car. George also carved walking sticks, which some of you, if you know anything about that, you'll have seen those in the space downstairs. There are some research opportunities, of course. We want to get out into schools, but we also want to engage the university here. So as well as the availability of using the material that's there, there's also a PhD being launched at the moment. And that is that. Thank you. What, about 5 seconds left now?
I'm going to wait for the slide to move on before I start. So let's just bear with a moment. Oh wait, no, there's more. So you can look.
Here's the logos, please do. And thank you to Heritage Lottery Fund for funding us, I should say that now.
Just a few more seconds. Haha, this is me. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Kate Green, and this is Jimmy. Jimmy is 13 years old, and he has just been diagnosed with type A diabetes. But what does that mean for him? So he now has to deal with having to manage an illness for the rest of his life. That means he's going to have to think carefully about his lifestyle choices in terms of his diet, his exercise, and he's going to have to manage his insulin levels by making sure he takes the right amount of it for his injections. And the Pergamon project, so it's an EU-funded H2020 project that we're working on with our partners in Italy, in the Netherlands, and also in the United Kingdom. And it's building a framework that will help creative, small, medium enterprises to create pervasive, serious games using a virtual coach and sensory networks. But what does that mean for Jimmy? So the Tiki Taco game is an exemplar of this framework. And the idea of it is that Jimmy will be able to build an adherence to dealing with his disease using these 4 components. So there's the gamification platform, there is the 3D game, a virtual coach, and a sensor network. So Jimmy will sit down with his doctor and his parent or guardian, and they will set out daily and weekly goals. These daily and weekly goals are exactly the sorts of things he's going to have to do for the rest of his life. And the idea being that there's once he's completed those goals, when he's inputting data about about what he's been eating, about how much exercise he's been doing, then once he's achieved them, he will then unlock other parts of the game, like this. So there'll be different worlds, and he'll be able to find out a lot more about dealing with type A diabetes. And it's kind of just really having a more playful way for him to understand what it's going to mean for him. So another part of it is that he will be able to have a social kind of aspect. So he will develop an avatar. They're all octopus, so they can really go to town with what they look like, and they can connect with other people in the platform as well. And so another component is the virtual coach. This is kind of a personal mentor, really, who will kind of give you motivational things to keep him engaged with the game and to keep carrying on and making sure that he is sticking to these good practices. Now, the sensor network is kind of one of the most innovative parts of the project. So the idea is around it is that he will have to take his blood sugar levels very regularly, every day. But what he will have to do is he'll take it, and then he will the data will be transmitted through an API, and then it will be put into the system. So he doesn't have to manually input it into the Pergamon framework or anything, so it's all done for him. But this game is innovative, it's really exciting, it's going to help him increase his adherence to dealing with type A diabetes. More excitingly for me, that this project really enables us to have conversations around privacy and security and indeed trust. It's absolutely our responsibility now that we have to be asking these questions. It's in the news all the time, and it's lovely to hear about it today from Brian and speaking to Jim and everybody else I've been speaking to, is that we need to do more in terms of our digital literacy and competencies. We need to understand what is happening to our data. So an example would be the Patients Like Me in 2010. It came out that they were selling their the users' data. People signed up to this network. It's a social network for people with mental illness. What had happened was that they signed up and thinking that it was a private and secure place for them to speak with other people. But what was happening was that the data was being sold to third parties, whether that was going to be health insurers or otherwise. And this was real kind of distrusting. We wouldn't expect that when it comes to people's health. But it's more to do with that. It's not just healthcare, it's about education, it's about our daily rituals, what we do all the time. And this is a really exciting opportunity to ask ourselves, who owns our data? What does that mean? Where is it being stored? Do we have the right to be able to delete it? Do we know the answer to these questions? Probably not. So I'm asking you all today to kind of think about that, in terms of your Facebook. Do you know what they're doing with your data? Everybody else? But this is not meant to be a sad thing at all. So I want to say everything is awesome because the Pergamon project is it really is fantastic. And without having something like this, we wouldn't be able to develop a game that could help somebody, really manage their disease or otherwise, or other applications that the framework might bring. But again, I would like to ask you to become more responsible with your data. And let's start the conversations now, because if we start talking about it, start being more aware, and actually start practicing, a more private, potentially, if we need to be private, and more secure space, then that's a great thing. one final thing. So Jimmy is 13 years old and he's legally allowed to use a Google account. But imagine, oh God, I've got to go. But imagine if he wasn't 13 and he needed to have support for his diabetes.
Hello everyone. I'm Michaela OBrien. I'm a researcher here at the lab, and today I'm going to talk to you about ImpArab, which is a location-based app about learning Italian. So it's a working partnership within researchers here at DMLL with members of staff at the Languages Center and also students at Coventry University. And of course, if you do a search on iTunes, you're going to have a range of apps that are about language learning, and ours is quite different because we wanted to use the technological developments, but also the environment around us and what the city offers to us. So if we looked at the opportunities that we get when we immerse in a city, and we wanted to take our students out of the classroom, we wanted to move beyond the walls in the classroom and take them out and immerse in this environment, because it creates opportunities for interactions, it creates opportunities for authentic experiences. They can practice their observation skills, they can collect content that they can use later on in the classroom, and also it's an opportunity for cultural encounters. And very important is about fostering these habits of mind that learning is happening everywhere and is not just in the classroom. So we are using an authoring tool which has been developed by MIT. This is the Tailblazer, and a prototype has been developed. So the idea is that we are using the part one in the classroom. They're doing some activities in the classroom, then they go out in the city and they're doing some activities in the city, and then they go back in the classroom and then discuss this. And we have done a play test session with 7 students from advanced students of Italian learning. So we got 7 of them to test part 1 with us, and they had an extra bonus of us following them and observing them and taking notes of what they were doing. So they went around in the city, they tested the app, and then we got some a focus group discussion about what they thought about the app. So they all thought that it was quite enjoyable. I will move to the next slide. So they liked it. They said that the information was very well laid out. They thought that it was very interactive. They thought that it was more interactive compared to a textbook. They had opportunities to learn something about the history of Coventry. And of course, their experience is very much based around translation and around dictionaries. So if you ask students about language learning, they will only think about Google Translate, for example. So yes, their experience was very positive about the app, and we did the testing of part 1. They thought that it was good for group working as well, especially in the beginning of the year, because it's going to be for Italian learners, beginners. And then they also had opportunities for incidental learning. For example, they were outside the Whitefriars pub. I don't know how many of you know the pub. So they said, we didn't know anything about this pub. And also, while they were walking around the city, like little alleys behind the cathedral, so for them it was an opportunity to learn about these things. And of course, there were challenges. You can see from this picture, not so many interactions were taking place, at least in the group that I was following. So they were very much heads down, doing the task. I think they were very task-focused, thinking that the important thing is to find the next location. And to an extent, I think it was quite risky for their health and safety when they were going around in the city, just typing things down. Another challenge, it was that the feedback that we got was very much based on their prior experiences. So this shapes the kind of feedback we receive when we do this kind of testing. So they couldn't accept the fact that they couldn't zoom in this map, because the experience is you can zoom and you can see things. And of course, the challenge, I think, for Billy and Tiziana is very much about how they are going to embed this in the assessment, because the original plan is going to be a part of the advantage module within the university. So how we can ensure that this is quality of quality. The next step, we are doing a blind test. So based on feedback that we received from the students, we have developed part 3 and part 4. We have changed part 1 and part 2. We are doing a blind test, so it goes out to all the students. So please spread the word, and if you would like more information, get in touch with us and test the app.
Hello. Okay. I'm a bit short. Da, 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 we're going to do a dance. I think I get a reputation around here of getting, oh, car, right, so I'm here, I'm Samantha Clark, and I'm here to talk about Crowds for Roads, or otherwise known as CARS. It's a Horizon 2020 project, funded by the wonderful people at the EU, keep people like me in a job, yay! So, woohoo, EU. So we have 7 partners, we have 4 Italian, 2 British, and 1 from Romania. It's a 36-month project. And so what is the aim of the project? Well, the project looks at how can we engage users to develop more sustainable and healthy travel behaviour. And this is used by, so this is a bit busy, but essentially it's saying ride sharing and smart road sensing can be used to develop these healthy travel behaviours. And why is this a problem? Well, the problem is at the moment with more private car usage that it's just not sustainable at the moment. So as it grows and grows, we will find ourselves more in this kind of situation where we're just stuck in traffic. And the ramifications are, well, sickly poor world. CO2 emissions equals, yes, lots of climate change and problems. And one of the other things is, of course, the road ecology itself and the network of the roads, and also the damage and the stress to the roads as well. It's expensive to maintain. So how do we go about sort of looking at this? And also, of course, your health, the stress levels I'm sure that you might experience from being stuck in a traffic jam, and also if you're stuck in traffic, you're not getting any exercise. So these are the kind of problems that we face. So what are we going to do about it? This is kind of what we are looking at through this project, is how we can engage people. So our job here at Coventry University, and mine and Sylvester's, is to look at how we can use BlaBlaCar, one of our partners, who are a ride-sharing platform, one of the biggest across Europe, I think 18 countries they're across. And ride-sharing is all about carpooling. They have a system where you can sign up and get people. And also Smart Road Sense, which was developed by another one of the partners, the Italian partner, that measures the quality of the roads via your mobile sensors. So how do we bring those together, and why? Well, there's several problems of how we do this, because there's a lot of psychological barriers which we have to broach. When we talk about ride sharing, you have to broach the problem of you want to share your space with other people that you don't know. Also, safety. I mean, do you really want to get into a car that you don't know who you're getting into a car with? How do you kind of approach those issues? And also, just convincing people, well, is this the best way? I can just get in my car and go from A to B. What is it that's going to make me decide that I want to share my trip with someone? Is this going to be extra time, extra hassle? So how do we do that? Well, we get to try and develop a gamification system using game-like mechanics to try and engage users to engage with these two systems and bring them together to create something more. And also, how do we do this in a way that is right for the users themselves? So that's our job here. And a little dance. So, at the moment, we've currently identified a couple of potential user groups. So the elderly is one. So they might not have access to cars anymore or their driving license, but they still want to maintain mobility. So they could be a potential user group that we focus on. Parents are who have children at the same schools. Well, there is a potential there for looking at ride sharing to drop kids off and back and forth to school. And also, people who go to similar, events such as big sporting events, music gigs, things like that. That is great because they've already broached one of the psychological problems of shared interest. So this is something that we could look at. And so this is currently where we are. We're just now assessing what are the user groups out there and what are the needs of the people out there, and how we can kind of then get more healthy travel behaviour. So that's the website if you want any more information, or you can come and grab me at some point and have a chat more about it. I'm quite happy to blab on about it because there's not enough time. And a dance to end.
Hi. Oh, just electrocuted me. Hi, I'm Gemma Tombs. I'm a researcher in the DMLL, and I'm going to talk to you today about a project on accessibility, which is the MUSE project, Modernity and Disability Ensuring Quality Education for Disabled Students. This is another EU project funded by Erasmus+, and we are using technology to increase the opportunities available to students with disabilities. So we've got a number of partners. We've got 2 partners in Chile, 2 in Mexico, 2 in Argentina, and those are the ones who we are really working with support from people at Coventry, Greece and Italy. I'm hoping none of you are thinking, why is this important? But if you are, you might be interested to know that 10% of students in the UK have a disability. In Mexico, less than 5% of students in higher education have a disability. It's the same in Chile. In Argentina, it's less than 1%. That's important because actually those stats might seem significant, but what do we think of when we say disability? What is the definition of disability that we're using? Now, this is partially based on what's the Swing project. Who's heard of it? Yeah. Okay, same project essentially, except working with universities in Egypt and Morocco. And what we did in that project was we created technology accessibility centres. So those accessibility centres hosted technology. You can see an example of one there. They've got computers, they've got screen readers, they've got magnifiers, they've got braille keyboards, they've got braille printers, all stuff that might seem quite basic but actually made a huge difference to the lives of those students in Egypt and Morocco. As well as the stuff that we had in the accessibility centres, we provided technology they could take out into the classroom. Good timing. So things like, again, magnifying glasses, iPads. Students were already using their mobile phones to take out into the classroom to record lectures. So a lot of the technology they already had themselves, we just provided additional stuff. We also worked with the universities in Egypt and Morocco to create training guidelines for how to use this technology, but also how to think more broadly about accessibility in education. What we learnt from that project was actually that the students knew a heck of a lot more about this than we did, which is unsurprising because it's their lives. They had already developed resources to learn without us providing it. So they were teaching the staff how to use the technology. They were teaching us how to use it. And that really turned everything on its head when it came to the MUSE project. So hopefully you got the metaphor there. And so we came into the MUSE project thinking, right, okay, we're swinging into this and things are entirely different. Now, we have the privilege in the MUSE project of developing the needs assessment. And in MUSE, so unlike Swing, we are now creating 6 accessibility centres. We're trying to network out across universities. We are going to hopefully train 1,080 people on using accessible technology. Hopefully we are kind of going forward with what we learnt on the Swing project and just continuing to improve, but also having learnt, my perception is that actually we need to take a step back and we need to listen to what the students tell us at these universities. So Kate and I went out to Chile a few weeks ago to start talking about the needs assessment of students and staff at these universities in Chile, Argentina and Mexico. And we're finding that the good practice they have so far, things like committees for the care of students with disabilities, adaptation of examinations and resources. But again, those first 2 points is about students with disabilities. Again, how are we defining disability? What students are being excluded from getting support because they do not fit what we consider to be a definition of disability. What students are being treated differently because someone has decided, based on an arbitrary definition, that they have a disability. So one of the things we found out is that the universities and the MUSE project all have very different definitions of disability. So trying to do a needs analysis is incredibly complex, and it's something that we're trying to figure out as we go. And this one is something that I just found out when I was talking to one of the staff members, you know, the social environment generates disability. We all know about this medical and social models of disability, but it just reminds me to think critically about, in this needs analysis and in this project, what do we mean when we use a particular definition, and how can we help improve the lives of students without viewing them through our mind frame. That's me.